Hey everyone, Thyworm here, telling you why Liberté in 2023 might surprise you. It is a nuanced review, this one, with my recommendations at the end. First, however, you're welcome to my series of reviews where I'm playing typically older ARPGs again in 2023 and see how they hold up. Liberté, however, just recently released in May 2023 after an initial early access launch back in February 2022. If you enjoy these videos, let me know by leaving a like and subscribe for more ARPG content. We're starting by just getting some public service announcements out of the way before we really dive in. This game has local co-op, apparently, not online. I think that got scrapped, but I didn't play this in co-op, only single player. The game ran great for me, but I have a beast of a PC these days. However, I also have a Steam Deck and Liberté is fully Steam Deck optimized and verified. It runs and plays great, and I've played significant parts of my playthrough on the Steam Deck. It has cloud saves too, so progress syncs between PC and deck. Liberté is set in the French Revolution, which in itself could be interesting enough, you would think, but the devs added a bit of spice in the form of the Bliss, an otherworldly power driven by Lady Bliss, an ethereal creature trying to take on a corporal form. She is manifesting as either a fungi-covered giant, which assassinated the king, or she's just sort of an attractive lady, I guess. Look, don't ask me what's going on here exactly. All you need to know is she's helping you because you actually died in the assassination, and Lady Bliss resurrects you to act as her puppet. And she keeps doing that, adding a roguelite theme to the game. If this all sounds a little strange, I think it's because it is a little strange. I didn't think about the whole premise too much. And if you just let the storyline have its way, there's quite a lot to unpack here and to enjoy. Revolutionary Paris doesn't only have the Bliss, there's also a civil war raging through the city and 4 factions are warring for control. The throne and its prince is one of them. There's the church, led by Victor, who is a demon hunter, because of course he is. You have the rebels, led by the beautiful Anna, who used to be a royal herself. And then you have a bunch of voodoo people called the Tribe, with Eli at the helm. You're doing scenarios for each of the 4 factions, and every time small elements change, driving the plot forward. A plot that is partly voice acted and completely well written. It is rare to have a good story in an ARPG, but Liberté definitely delivers, with believable dialogue and a bunch of intrigue, as you might expect in political Paris. Apart from plot devices, the factions are used to gain reputation with, and as soon as you are in good standing with them, you unlock rewards. Rewards in the form of new playable characters, which open up more playstyles. At the start of a new run, you always have 2 factions arguing with each other. You get to pick a side, and typically you take the one that gives you your daily quest reward, which is reputation with that faction, or the one that drives the story forward. Depending on your choice, the run has different enemies and objectives. Sounds good, but we'll get into that because it's not as good as it sounds. Before every run, you get to pick 1 out of 3 decks. You can create those decks yourself, and as you play, you unlock more blueprints to craft new cards, as well as crafting materials to craft those cards. The decks can hold up to 40 cards, and cards come in different types. I will walk you through them. You have melee skills, ranged skills, and support skills as your main cards. You can equip 1 of each during your run. The first 2 are straightforward, I would say. Support skills provide armor, for example, or other buffs. You also have talents, which are passive bonuses. Some talents can stack, they're called tiered talents, others don't. It's all clearly indicated in the UI. Later in the game you find keepsakes of important story characters which cost 0 mana, and you always draw them first, and they once again heavily impact your run. After picking a deck and choosing a faction, the scenario roughly works like this. You fight groups of enemies, you level up, and you draw 2 cards from your deck each time you do. Most cards cost mana to play, and you can get mana from burning cards. The more expensive the card is to play, the more mana you get from burning it. And burning it means you lose the card. That also means that your deck needs to consist of cards you can burn so you can play other cards, and you get your character set up the way you want. The ultimate goal here is of course to create a broken deck, a super strong character, and figure out exactly how to do that. It is what makes this game interesting and keeps it fresh, because there are so many cards and archetypes to play. You have your typical armor-based warrior, there are rogues that can backstab and use poison, you can create a pistolier/musket kind of character, or turn your gaze to inflicting curses by drawing your own blood. Besides all of this, there are some events per scenario, like a flea market to heal and buy more cards, or other NPCs that buff your character. So far so good, you might say, and if I would have just played 8 hours of this game and released this video, I would be rather positive about the whole thing. The main issue hampering the longevity of Liberté is the design and the limited number of tile sets available within scenarios. This game is randomized to some extent, but you do find yourself in the same locations over and over again. Some additional locations would really help, and the more you play, the more noticeable this becomes. And Liberté changes from an interesting bunch of concepts that work well for, let's say, 8 hours, into quite a bit of a slog with very little variety to keep you going. To hammer that point home, the gameplay loop of Liberté is basically start a run, try out your new deck if you made one, get a bunch of blueprints and crafting materials, craft new cards, alter your deck if you want, and repeat. And on paper that's fine, but the minute-to-minute gameplay doesn't really change all that much, unless you are constantly trying out new deck combinations. At some point, however, I found something I liked and that worked really well, killing pretty much the incentive to keep experimenting. Somewhere hidden within this repetitive gameplay loop, there is an interesting plot, and while I really wanted to see how the story ends, I just can't bring myself to keep playing the same levels and scenarios over and over again. There is an Endless Bliss mode too, which provides a bit of crafting material, but it's hardly something to get excited about, meaning that I'm skipping that for now. So let's go back into the main gameplay loop. There are, like I said, only 4 scenarios, and your run has all 4 of them in a random order. Each time you complete a scenario, the next one loads with 1 extra debuff, a curse. The 4 scenarios are 1. The People's Court, save or execute a minister. 2. Brave Man's Wounds, stealing supplies for one or the other faction. 3. The attack on House Lambal, initiate or prevent that attack. And 4. At the mercy of the gods, either destroy a faction or save its relics. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen, that is not much variety at all. And this is like 95% of every run, you have to realize that. This is very problematic for me, and this design is begging the question why there isn't a bit more randomization involved or content to keep the gameplay loop fresh. After 16 hours of constantly running the same 4 scenarios, I quit. This is what I completed or achieved after 16 hours of gameplay, which gives you a sense of the progression in Liberté. I only unlocked half of the blueprints of the cards and only enough resources to craft around 25% of the cards. I unlocked less than half of the faction reputation and only 36% of the story. I'm normally not someone who cares too much about playtime, and I am of the opinion that an amazing indie experience of 3 hours can be worth $20. But I'm not valuing game time here versus money. I'm just looking at how terribly grindy this game is, because I'm just realizing while writing this that after 16 hours the entire game should be unlocked. All card blueprints, every card crafted, the entire faction reputation opened up, and the story completed. And if that would have been the case, I would have enjoyed the game so much more. The thought of me playing for at least another 20 hours to 100% the game and figure out the plot, it's just not going to happen. Probably never. And I'm not the only one. Only 0.1% of the players has the Steam achievement for finishing the first chapter, which is around 30% of the story. And it's a real shame, because I think there's quite a lot to like as well. The overall presentation of the game is very stylized, including great artwork and decent voice acting. It definitely delivers the vibe of France back in the day, I feel. The same is true for the level design, which is mostly good, although some tiles are very narrow, making it hard to navigate and fight in. Talking about fighting, the combat in my opinion is typically rather tight and it feels good, with a controller at least, that's how I played. Enemy attacks are well telegraphed, and once you've mastered a deck of decent skills, you're in for a treat, parrying enemy attacks, retaliating and using your own skills to wipe them out. Combat is fun, feels responsive, and no complaints there from my end. Enemy design is something else, however. Quite a few enemies just have flat out annoying abilities. The tribe sends out crows and swarms of bugs, which are hard to avoid for melee characters. The crusaders from the church slow you down constantly, making it extremely difficult to dodge. That's not amazing either. And don't even get me started on some of these curses, introducing zombies spawning from corpses or other annoying stuff like pink lasers or something. I'm really not a huge fan of the enemy or curse design in that regard. All in all, it's a mixed bag. But I've said what I wanted to say, it's time for a conclusion, and this is a tough one. It is only 20 euros this game, which is probably borderline worth it depending on what you value in games. My real recommendation would be, however, to either hope the devs fix the super slow progression, which would make the game much more satisfying to complete, and they might as soon as they look at the data, and I would get this game on sale at 25% off or maybe even a bit more. I think you're good to go, taking into account what I explained throughout the video. If you have any questions, post them in the comments, let me know. I'm happy to respond in the comments. Thanks for watching and making it to the end. Love you all. See you soon. Bye.